Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. As you can see in the standings, at the moment I have 6 games finished and 27 points. There are 2 games remaining, but thanks to me winning my last 4-player game, it is actually already certain that I will be able to win my group and move on to the upper bracket of the next stage. And with my win already being certain, I decided to skip one of the last 2 games, and that game that I will skip is a 3-player game against SQ and HealingAura. However, I will put a replay code of this game in the description of the video, so if you still want to take a look at this game and don't, without knowing the outcome of this game, then please pause the video now, because now we are going to take a look at how this game finished before we are going to take a look at a 2-player game against SQ. And the games that you don't have knowledge about are the top 2 ones that you can see here. And I think I already told you in one of the last videos that sadly SQ timed out in one of the games, and that is the second one on top that you can see. And there HealingAura managed to win before Flag, so HealingAura getting a win in. And as you can see in the other game where I was involved, there also HealingAura was able to win. I finished at the 2nd position and SQ lost this game. So HealingAura definitely making a nice comeback. He had 0 points in the standings, as you saw in the screenshot before, but now he has won 2 3-player games and is maybe about to make a bit of a comeback in the standings. So for him it's maybe a bit bad that we won't take a look at this 3-player game, because he played very well there. So yeah, definitely check that game out if you're interested. Very strong performance from HealingAura there, definitely showing why he made it so far in this tournament. And yeah. But now that you have the knowledge about the outcome of those 2 games, we will now take a look at the current standings again. And the main thing that has changed in the standings is that HealingAura, with winning those 2 3-player games, is actually not in the last position any longer. He is at the moment 2 points before SQ, so for SQ he is now in real danger of getting potentially out of the tournament. So for him the last 2 games are very important. He will still play a 2-player game against me and a 2-player game against HealingAura. So now that is now, he's now definitely a bit under pressure, and now we will first take a look at, we will take a look at a 2-player game from me against SQ now, before you will see the final standings at the end of this video. I'm playing in the 2nd position in this game, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there are definitely a bunch of culture leaders in there. We have in H2 Anthony Gaudi, Bach and Shakespeare, so definitely the potential to set up a lot of culture production, but at least there's no Hollywood at the end. There's also no Gandhi in H3. There are Chaplin and Marlene though, and the internet, so that could definitely be a culture heavy game, but maybe without Gandhi in Hollywood there is also the potential for some other strategies to work very well. Pierre and the internet are there as well as a strong combination. Also Sid Meier and the internet. Bill Gates is there in H2 with the ocean liner service, but no Maria Theresa. We have James Cook, but no ocean liner service. The Harvard College is there. There are 2 military action leaders with Catherine and Robespierre. One in H1 with Jan Žižka, also Nostradamus to potentially help with the strength. Leonardo for some lab and printing press synergy. Saladin is a very solid leader, maybe especially in 2-player games, because the civil actions are definitely very nice to have in 2-player games. And then Genghis Khan and Columbus are also there. Also Universitas and Silk Road are some very interesting wonders, Himeji Castle and Machu Picchu. SQ starts with just taking the library. That is of course a very solid wonder, and it is next and you can maybe take one of those leaders that are on the row. And then at my turn I have to make a decision. Do I maybe just want to take a leader and a wonder now, so that I know what I have for certain, or do I want to do maybe go for something, for example, like Alex and Frugality, and leave myself open for a different wonder? There could potentially be a Pyramids revealed, and if the Pyramids aren't revealed, maybe I could hope to get an early Universitas or an early Silk Road, for example. So there is definitely a case for example, just taking Alex and Frugality, or maybe Moses and Frugality. Moses and Alex are not that, I think are very similar in my opinion in their power level. I decided to go for Alex here just because there is Saladin in the game, and I think getting Saladin very early would be a very nice follow-up to getting Alex. And if Saladin should at the end be in the row very early, I think I would prefer having Alex over Moses. But if it takes a bit longer until I get a leader, and if Saladin is late and I have Alex, and then leaders like Genghis Khan or Columbus are early in the row that I can't use that nicely very early, then also Moses could be better. So I think it's actually not a clear decision which of those leaders I should take. At the end I went with Alex because of Saladin being in the deck as one reason. I could also not take Saladin, maybe just take Stonehenge into Frugality and leave myself open for a different leader. Then I, for example, could get Boudica, Hippocrates, but I almost for certain would have to grab those leaders for 2 civil actions, and the leader I really want to get going immediately at the next turn, while when I leave myself open for the pyramids, I can maybe also just take a yellow card at the next turn, still use a bunch of civil actions very efficiently with being able to elect my leader, and then I could also wait for 1 turn with taking the pyramids. However, at the end I made a decision to just go for the Stonehenge. I think it's a very solid wonder. The happy face can also be quite nice to have in a game where there are some culture leaders, and just the early science is very nice to have. And so instead of waiting for potential pyramids, I just at the end made the decision to go for the Stonehenge. But it could also be an idea to leave myself open for the pyramids, so I think both could be viable. At the end, I just rather wanted to go for the Stonehenge, because there will only 4 new cards being revealed, so it's a bit more than 50% that the pyramids will be revealed. So that's a fine shot, but it definitely could be that the pyramids aren't available, and as you can see, those actually aren't available. So now I was quite happy that I have the Stonehenge, because of course it could be nice to maybe wait for Silk Road or Universitas, but I don't have a leader that produces additional science, and it just can be a bit awkward, and now I have a very solid wonder that I can work with. SQ goes for Moses, but doesn't elect him yet, so that he can pay 2 civil actions to grab the Engineering Genius. That will help him, of course, with finishing the Library of Alexandria, but I also wasn't too happy about it, because at least he had to pay 2 civil actions for it. And as you can see at my turn, there is indeed a very early Saladin available, and now the big question was, do I want to take him or not? As you can see, of course, I at the end made the decision to take him. And I think early in the game, Saladin is just very, very strong as Alex. I want to get an early replacement leader, and if I don't go for Saladin, I have to go for a different leader. Of course, there is also Yanshishka coming down the road, but I think early in the game, the civil action from Saladin is just so much more useful. And when I go for Yanshishka, first of all, I don't have a tactic for now, and then to really get some nice value out of him, maybe I have to go for a bit of military pressure, and I don't want to be forced to go for a bit of military pressure. I just really wanted to have Saladin. I think especially in 2-player games he's very strong, because there definitely is a bit of a limitation of additional civil action sources. There's only 1 copy of Code of Laws, only 1 copy of Monarchy. If you miss out on those, then there's only 1 copy of Republic, only 1 copy of Conmon. So I think because of that, having the additional civil action from Saladin can be quite strong, and I at the end made the decision to take him. However, now I still had to decide what to do with my last civil action. I could just build a mine, or I could just elect Alex. If I elect Alex now, I can use him immediately at the next turn, then elect Saladin at the next turn and get a civil action going as quickly as possible, while when I build a mine now, then if I still want to get a yellow token from Alex, which I definitely want to do, then I would have to delay the civil action from Saladin by another turn. And I just didn't like this too much, of course. If I don't build a mine now, and if there's no development revealed, which is maybe quite likely, because when I elect Alex now, I want to use him immediately at the next turn, so I won't see an event. And then with being on 4 resource, I can't build my mine and in my lab, so I not only miss out on a resource this turn, but also already on an additional science this turn. But only if I want to build a second lab, actually, and with the printing press coming down the road, and with there being Shakespeare in the game, and also Anthony Gaudi, I thought it could also be quite nice to go for the printing press, and then it's maybe not really that bad to miss out on the second lab, because I maybe want to build printing presses anyway, and with that, at the end, I definitely was willing to go for Alex immediately, also just because I think it is very strong to get a civil action as quickly as possible, but I also think it is worth it to delay it for a little bit, so that I can also get the additional yellow token from Alex. SQ goes for Moses, increases population, builds 1 stage of the library in another stage of the library, so he also doesn't commit to the second lab. Maybe also wants to make him, wants to stay open for potential printing press at the next turn. He has some additional population from Moses. There is Shakespeare in the game, so he could have maybe also played a turn with going for building a lab, but maybe he also wasn't too happy how he can spend his civil actions then, and now he has a free population, doesn't go into consumption, uses his civil actions efficiently, leaves himself open for printing press, so I think that looks very solid. Now it is my turn. I use Alex, I elect Saladin immediately, and then it was relatively clear what I want to do. I want to have this printing press, especially because SQ also left himself open for it, and with having a printing press going, getting that going now early, it's just very nice to have, and then later on be set up for Shakespeare, I think. So I definitely didn't want to have SQ to I didn't want that SQ will have that, and I really wanted to have it for myself, so I definitely wanted to take this, and then I still wanted to get my mine going now, increase my population to get out of corruption, and at the next turn I can maybe start building some printing presses. As you can see, there are actually some early wonders coming down the road, Meiji Castle and Universitas. And SQ, with starting to build a library, also made himself prepared for potentially taking a wonder now, which maybe also was a reason to do this. And as you can see, he actually goes for the Meiji Castle here, is even willing to build a warrior to get out of corruption, so that he also gets Jan Shishka going. And now he takes the Meiji over the Universitas. Universitas, of course, also can be quite strong, but in two-player games, the Meiji Castle can just be very powerful, can make it a lot more difficult for your opponent to try something with the military against you, and also just produces some culture along the way. So I think the Meiji Castle can definitely work out nicely. The Universitas also could have been strong, but I think going for the Meiji here is definitely an understandable decision. Then this turn I will go for the printing press, just I don't want to delay getting some additional science production any longer, even though I have the Stonehenge, so I build one printing press, increase my population, and then I thought about what I want to do with this engineering genius, because I really don't want to, this could be a very helpful card for SQ, so ideally I don't want to give him the chance to take it, so I definitely thought about just taking it for myself, but it would be a bit costly for 2 civil actions, especially because I can't use it nicely in the Stonehenge. Who knows if I get another wonder soon. There's actually only the Silk Road left, and I also can't use the engineering genius on very nicely, so I would have to wait until H2 or just use it for 2 resources, and for that I thought paying 2 civil actions is a bit expensive. And so I thought maybe it's just fine to not take it if I leave it on 2 civil actions. That is very important, I think, because SQ has a bit of an issue to get out of corruption. Maybe he experienced a bit of downside of Moses here, so to get out of corruption, if he doesn't want to build another warrior, he needs to spend 3 civil actions, maybe just increasing population 2 times and then building a lab. And if I give him the engineering genius for 1 civil action, then he could just do this very nicely and take the engineering genius, which will be an extremely helpful card for him to finish the Meiji Castle. But if I let it stay in 2 civil actions, then it's already quite a bit awkward for him to take it for 2. And so I at the end made a decision that I myself rather want to have the cultural heritage, because even though I have some additional science from the Stonehenge, I think having even more science is almost never bad. If I get Code of Laws, Monarchy, then or stuff like this, then every bit of science could be very useful. It's just available for cheaper for me, and then I can also spend 1 civil action to already build 1 stage of the Stonehenge. I skipped the Knights, which of course could have been an interesting card to take for 1 civil action, but as I said, I really want to let the engineering genius stay on 2 civil actions for SQ. I just keep my tactics for now, draw another tactic, the Legion tactic, and also the new deposits. SQ increases his population 2 times, 3 times even, with Moses, and takes the Knights. Interestingly, he is still delaying his 2nd lab. Maybe one still wants to leave himself open for potential printing press, or what I also was afraid of, especially as we can see, he is revealing the medieval army tactic now. I really was afraid that he maybe just wants to save up some resources to go for 2 Knights at the next turn, maybe then elect Jan Shishka, and if he has already drawn some aggressions, then it could potentially be quite dangerous for me, the situation. So at my next turn I really had to think about how do I want to react to this, how much effort do I want to put into my turn to maybe defend against this potential threat. Because if there would be no pressures at all, then I maybe would just continue this turn with building another printing press, increasing my science and culture production. First of all, I will see that I don't remember exactly my reasons for it. The new deposits could at this point be helpful for both of us, maybe even more helpful for SQ, because it might help him with finishing the Meiji Castle. And we both don't have iron for now. I think I was just hoping for some developments to be revealed which could potentially help me in the situation, but I actually don't know exactly what developments I was hoping for, but I think that was probably the reason. I see it, and the development of agriculture is opened. That allows me to increase my population 1 time, and as I said, if there would be no pressure, I maybe would just build another printing press at this turn, but now I really had to think about what do I want to do to prepare for this, that maybe SQ goes just up to 10 strength at the next turn. At least I do have Saladin, who also can be quite helpful, of course, to potentially defend myself. And the problem is I have only 2 military actions, so if I I could just maybe reveal the Legion tactic already this turn, and then I can maybe build a Legion tactic potentially with Warriors at the next turn, but it would only put me at 5 strength with Saladin at 7, and I don't have a defense card, so maybe SQ wouldn't try an aggression done, but if he tries one I would still not be able to defend myself. I could maybe hope to get Swordsman at the next turn. I even thought about going for Swordsman already this turn, but I also really thought that I shouldn't overreact to this, because SQ didn't commit anything there yet. He only maybe delayed his lab to potentially threaten this, and if I now overreact to this, maybe just take Swordsman, build a step, or play Cultural Heritage, start building some Swordsman, investing a lot of resources there, and then SQ just continues building up a nice economy, then I think that could end up being quite bad for me. So ideally I want to find a turn where I can just do some nice stuff for myself, but also have a relatively nice way how I might defend myself for the next turn. And at the end I increase my population one more time, I build one stage of the Stonehenge to get out of corruption. And then one decision that I also had to make this turn is if I want to take a card from the row or not. And there are two things that are important when I think about this. First of all, if I take a card from the road, then the Code of Laws will be available for 2 civil actions for SQ, while if I don't take any card from the road, then a Code of Laws stays on 3, making it a lot more difficult for SQ to take it. However, if I don't take a card from the row, and then SQ also doesn't take one, and he can definitely spend some civil actions without taking any cards from the row, especially if I don't take the irrigation, he can just take the irrigation from one of the discard spots. And then if he doesn't take any cards, then the Knights will stay on 2 civil actions, and with the Medieval Army tactic, which is quite efficient, just being revealed at the moment, I thought that it could be nice to have the Knights, especially because it's the last copy, and if I don't take any cards, then it might be that the Knights actually stay on 2 civil actions for me. And especially if SQ plans to go for a bit of military pressure, he has Jan Žižka, he has Dimitri Castle, then it could be nice to have the Knights and the chance to maybe go for an efficient tactic at some point. And at the end I made the decision that I will take a card from the row. The irrigation, first of all, is a nice technology to have, with there always being the potential that a food solution is denied in 2-player games. And also I thought that it is actually not that easily possible for SQ to take the Code of Laws. If he wants to take it, then he has then 2 civil actions left, and to get out of corruption he very likely has to maybe, he could take the Code of Laws, develop the Knights, build a lab or something, or just build 2 Knights and then take the Code of Laws. But then at least he spent some science to develop the Knights, meaning he can't go for the Code of Laws that quickly, so that wouldn't be too bad. And if he just wants to develop the Code of Laws, then it's getting a bit tricky. If he builds a lab and increases his population, he's still not out of corruption. Maybe he has to build a warrior or some other stuff to be able to do this without having corruption. With that, I thought it's maybe not too bad to give the Code of Laws for 2 civil actions for SQ, and I just thought it could be nice to have the Knights guaranteed available for me for 1 civil action at the next turn, and it could also be nice to have a chance now to take the irrigation for 1 civil action. And now I also draw defense cards, which I was happy about, and of course I also have to tell you what do I want to do if Jan Žižka or if SQ goes now for Knights. Maybe Jan Žižka doesn't make a big difference. He has then 2 Medieval Army tactics regardless, but going for 2 Knights and going up to 10 strength is of course a bit of a threat, but I was very much hoping that a Warfare will be available for me at the next turn, and so without revealing any tactic I could just hopefully go for Warfare, develop it, then I have 3 military actions and I can build 2 warriors, reveal the Legion tactic, and then with also being able to take the strength from Saladin, I hopefully would be safe for now, and then I also still have a chance to take maybe the second copy of Swordsman at some point, so I was hoping that this could then be a nice way to react. And and I also thought maybe SQ won't even go for those 2 Knights, and I definitely shouldn't be overreacting to this. SQ indeed is willing to take the Code of Laws. He doesn't go for the Knights, so now it was interesting to see how will he get out of corruption, and he will just do it with building a religion, which is maybe a bit awkward, with there still being the possibility of free religion being revealed with the development of religion, but still it's nice to get out of corruption. He gets the happy face, he gets some additional cultural production, and he will have a lot of population with Moses, so if there's a free religion revealed, it's maybe also not too bad for him to just have a second religion going. So I think that's a very solid turn for him, getting this Code of Laws going, the 5th civil action, increasing his science production, and then getting out of corruption with building this religion. And with him not taking any cards from the row, at least I will have the Knights now available for 1 civil action. And as you can see, I am also willing to take it, I still rather planned on going for this medieval army tactic instead of going for one of those infantry tactics, especially now that the swordsmen are gone and that I have the chance to take knights for one civil action. So I do take the knights, I build one more printing press because now with SQ spending 6 resources on building those 2 urban buildings, the military threat is, at least for now, not that big any longer. At least the next turn SQ can't go for a lot of strength immediately, so I now use this to build one more printing press, and then I also made the decision to use the engineering genius immediately on the Stonehenge, only for 2 resources, but at least now at the end I only took it for 1 civil action, so I think getting it for 2 resources is not too bad, and it allows me at least now to build this printing press. We're also finishing the Stonehenge, going up to 3 culture production, 3 science production, and then with my last turn I made the decision to take the patriotism. With this at the next turn I could potentially go for a knight and then copy the medieval army tactic. I also thought about copying it already this turn, especially if I don't take the patriotism. It could be important to do this, to have the chance to go for one knight while already having fulfilled the tactic at the next turn. But I thought I maybe rather want to draw some cards first, because I don't know if I want to push the historic territory into the deck, and with that I maybe thought it could be nice to first draw some nice events now that I maybe can potentially seed, and then maybe copy the tactic. And I do indeed draw some events, some strength events, where of course I don't know if I really want to go for them, with my opponent having Himeji Castle and Yanshushka. So probably I don't want to seed them into the deck, but if I want to seed, at least I have some events that I can potentially push. SQ makes the decision to push an event now. For now the event deck is moving relatively slowly, and interestingly, as you can see, the development of markets was revealed. He has already lots of food, but he still made a decision to gain even more food, which allows him now to go for an additional Moses activation, getting even another population out. But it's an interesting decision, because I think the additional resources, especially with having the Himeji Castle laying around, could have been also very useful for him, but maybe just didn't like how the turn was looking. Then maybe just being able to spend a civil action on increasing the population another time was already quite nice. Maybe helps him to get out of corruption, and so he took the food from there, had now a lot of population with Moses, takes the iron, and then also takes the warfare, elects Yanshushka, and then reveals the fighting band tactic. One reason why I didn't want to reveal the fighting band or the legion tactic before was also that Yasku has Yanshushka, and if he doesn't want to commit to the knights, which is a bit of an investment, and he has already 2 warriors, so Yanshushka isn't really giving that much strength then I thought it could be nice that SQ maybe potentially doesn't have the option to go for an infantry tactic, but he has a copy of fighting band for himself, and with that can now get some value out of Yanshushka without having to invest into knights. And so that is his turn. He's now at 4 strength, is also starting some culture production at the next turn, can maybe start going for 2 iron upgrades. Now it will be my last H1 turn, and there were some different lines that I was considering. As you can see, I will end up going for the monarchy here, which I think is just nice to have. It's always a bit risky going into H2 without a government form in 2-player games. It always can be denied. And if I don't take the monarchy, maybe SQ could go for the monarchy. Maybe he wants to wait for an H2 government form anyway. But I also was a little bit afraid that with having the Himeji Castle, with having Yanshushka, also with having the warfare in hand now, there is still the potential that maybe he will go for a bit of pressure, and in this case, being only in 2 military actions could be a bit annoying. If he just finishes the Himeji Castle, he's at 6 strength, and then it could get a bit annoying when I'm only on 2 military actions. So I thought, not only because it gives me an additional civil action immediately, also because the 3rd military action is quite relevant potentially, I thought that I really want to have the monarchy. But if I go for the monarchy, I have only 3 civil actions left after developing it, and so instead of doing this, I could have also just gone for 2 iron upgrades, starting some resource production immediately, and then maybe either taking a card or playing the cultural heritage as my last civil action. I at least can maybe still have some hopes then to still get the monarchy at the next turn, so that definitely also could be an interesting line. If there's an early ocean liner service, it could be nice to get the iron production going as quickly as possible. Also an early Harvard College could be very interesting. And now that I have the monarchy and only 3 civil actions left, I still have enough science actually to go for the iron, but if I go for one upgrade, it's not enough to get out of corruption. I would have to build a warrior, which I maybe don't really want to do, because then it would be a bit more awkward to get into the medieval army tactic. And but one line that I considered was to actually still go for the iron, but actually build an iron mine directly, going up to 5 resource production and getting the monarchy going this turn. So that could be very interesting. I definitely wanted to take the iron here, and that was an interesting line that I considered. Again, if there's an early ocean liner service, especially ocean liner service in this case, because I commit an additional population to the mines, then I think that could be very nice, having already this additional resource production going, and then being able to afford this additional population there thanks to the population income from the ocean liner service. But I also wasn't certain if I really want to commit to an additional mine, especially if there is no early ocean liner service. It could be nice to have the population available potentially for the military in case there's some pressure, but also for the urban buildings, because there's definitely the potential that this game might become a culture race, especially if SQ doesn't go for military pressure and maybe rather wants to use the Meiji Castle for defensive purposes. Then it will be very difficult for me to go for maybe an aggressive play against him, and then it could definitely end up being a culture fest. So I thought that maybe then it could be a bit bad to have committed an additional population to the mines, especially because the new deposits is coming. Of course, you could say if I have more resource production, I gain even more resource out of the new deposits, but maybe it could also be that I have then just too many resources lying around, and maybe with the new deposits coming, it can be fine to just start upgrading the iron, be on 3 mines, and then still have enough resources to do everything, and then have the population available to put it somewhere else. So at the end I made a decision to not go for the iron. The question is, of course, what else to do then to get out of corruption. Do I want to increase my population, build a warrior? Do I want to start building a knight or something like this? But at the end I just made a decision to build another printing press, getting even more science and cultural production going, and I just thought I'd rather want to have this worker there than in an additional mine. And while I can't go for the iron this turn, at least with increasing my population, I can now very nicely get out of corruption, and I have just enough resource to go for 2 iron upgrades the next turn. The same as SQ, so our positions are definitely a bit similar. We have similar amounts of culture and cultural production, and of course you have to remember that my production is still missing. We have similar amount of science productions. We will be able to go for 2 iron upgrades. We have similar amount of civil actions. For now I have an edge there, but as soon as SQ maybe manages to get an H2 government going, then he has maybe an edge there. So I thought for now our positions are relatively similarly strong. SQ has the potential to go for Himeji Castle, which couldn't be useful for him. On the other hand, Himeji Castle blocks him from a potential ocean liner service or Harvard College. So I thought our positions are maybe relatively balanced at the moment. And then as my last actions in this turn, I made a decision to copy the medieval army tactic now, so that I have this tactic already and don't have to miss out on H2 draws later on. And now I draw the blunder. SQ first of all H2 will start, and then SQ makes the decision to seed, opens another development. There is indeed a development of religion, but as you can see, especially with having taken the fruit from the development of markets, SQ has that many populations now that it can easily afford just having another religion and getting the bit of additional culture production. He goes for 2 iron upgrades this turn, takes the rich land and a breakthrough, and then can maybe go for a very cheap 3rd upgrade, and then also can maybe still have relatively quickly the necessary resource to finish the Meiji Castle. And now it is my turn. I don't want to push because I don't want to push a strength event in there. I want to get the iron going, but there could have been also the option to actually go for a coal this turn. As you can see, I could have, instead of developing the iron, just taken the coal and went for 1 coal upgrade immediately, and that was definitely my first instinct, because I think, especially in 3 and 4 player games, I think that might be the best line to do this. But no, I thought that maybe in a 2-player game it's maybe not that important to have. I mean, it's still nice to have that much resource production, but I also just thought that the civil actions that I can do then this turn, saving the civil actions, also getting this going for less science, also are definitely relevant. If I go for the coal, I probably go for 1 coal upgrade and take the breakthrough or something like this. And then I have a relatively full hand. I will keep the iron in hand for a while, so it's definitely a possibility to go for this early coal, definitely something that I considered, but at the end I rather went for those 2 iron upgrades, and then I have the civil actions to not only take the breakthrough, but also the masonry. And the masonry I think is interesting in this situation, because if it ends up being a peaceful game, it just will save me some resource. Of course the architecture might be better. I have already a lot of printing presses, and I might maybe build operas or something at some point, especially with Shakespeare coming down the row. But there's also a very interesting wonder, the ocean liner service, and there the masonry could also just be very efficient. I have some science with the breakthrough in the cultural heritage, and so I thought having the masonry could be quite interesting here and could just be a nice card to have and a nice way to spend my civil actions this turn to take it. And I could potentially develop it, but with my last civil action I will play the cultural heritage. So I maybe will have less resource production, but the thing is also if I go for one coal upgrade this turn, I have not enough resource to go for another one. So in short term I will even get more production going for those iron mines, because I can go for another upgrade immediately at the next turn. Of course long term the coal will give more resource, but if I won't have the masonry available, and I will already be a bit of civil actions behind, I will have less science available. So at the end I made the decision to rather go for the iron mines here, and again there are the new deposits coming, where of course again it could be nice to get some additional resource production out of the coal mines, but if that is revealed quickly, then as said the iron mines could also give me more resource, and then maybe it can also just be fine to have those iron mines and just have more civil actions already available for the future turns, and also this masonry available, which also might just save me civil actions later on in case I get the ocean liner service. And then I also played a cultural heritage. One thing that I of course could have also considered, instead of taking breakthrough masonry and playing the cultural heritage, I could have just grabbed Shakespeare, because with having those 3 printing presses I just need operas, and then Shakespeare is just a very very strong leader. But I was just hoping that Shakespeare will be available for me for one civil action at the next turn, because SQ has no printing presses, there's only one copy of journalism, and if he goes for Shakespeare there is the possibility that he doesn't get any value out of him, and also there are some other strong culture leaders like Bach and Antoni Gaudi for him. Of course Shakespeare can be very dangerous, but with those other culture leaders and with the potential danger that Shakespeare isn't doing anything for him, I was hoping that Shakespeare will still be available for cheaper for me at the next turn. And if I should miss out on him, then that also means that I can go for one of those other culture leaders, so I thought there's no reason to grab him for 3 civil actions here. And then I draw some cards, the Politics of Strength, also War. And as you can see, SQ does actually go for Shakespeare, which surprised me a bit, but it definitely makes sense, because what he also can take here, thanks to the additional hand space from the library, is the journalism. So now he knows actually for certain that he can do something with Shakespeare. It's still somewhat costly, I think, because he spends his whole turn to do this, and also the selective breeding is coming down the row. I haven't committed to irrigation yet, so I can take this away, and for the moment SQ still has the Magic Castle laying around, meaning he can't easily go for the ocean liner service, and with going for Shakespeare, not taking the selective breeding and the irrigation this turn, there is definitely the chance that he misses out on additional, he misses out on a food solution. However, maybe that would not be too bad for him, because he actually has already some free population thanks to getting that many population out with Moses. So maybe with that it is an acceptable risk, and Shakespeare can just in a completely peaceful game. Shakespeare is just the strongest one of those culture leaders, and SQ maybe just didn't want to give me the chance to get him very cheaply, and then at some point being able to build some very very cheap operas, and with that he just denies him from me. And now it is my turn. I don't want to seed. I want to take the selective breeding away from SQ. I didn't commit to the irrigation yet, as said. I could also just go for the selective breeding immediately, but this I didn't want to do, because I was hoping that I maybe can make it that SQ misses out on a food solution completely, and with that I wanted to go for an ocean liner service if possible. And with that I don't really want to invest any resource into food upgrades, because then the selective breeding mainly will just be available to fix my famine issues later on, and I was hoping that I maybe get a chance to get the ocean liner service, which I can finish efficiently thanks to having the masonry, and then SQ doesn't get any additional population out, which I was hoping might give me an edge against him, even though he has Shakespeare. And so I take the selective breeding, I develop the masonry, and then I will actually just take those 2 efficient upgrades. I could have also just taken this efficient upgrade, going for 1 iron upgrade, but then I wasn't too happy about how I can spend my last civil actions. Either I commit already to a technology, which I didn't like too much, or I take one of those cards, which I also didn't like too much. And if I do it like this, if I don't go for this additional upgrade, it at least means that I can have enough resource to potentially finish an ocean liner service. So if the ocean liner service is available for me the next turn, I can just take and finish it, get the population going as quickly as possible, and thanks to those efficient upgrades I can get this upgrade going later on very cheaply. If I go for this upgrade already this turn, then I maybe I would have to use both of those efficient upgrades on the selective breedings, and if I indeed get the Ocean Liner service, then maybe I only want to upgrade one of the farms and not necessarily both of them. So I also thought it can maybe just be nice to know that I can use one of those two efficient upgrades on the iron upgrade, and I also didn't know what I really want to do with my last civil action in case I only take one efficient upgrade and go for an iron upgrade. So I at the end just took both of those efficient upgrades, having some additional resource from the yellow cards, and now I'm also very nicely prepared to take the Ocean Liner service. I draw some more cards, the Crime Wave and the Vast Territory, and as you will see, so finally the event deck will flip. Definitely took quite a while. The development of science is revealed, and then this turn, Askew will just start going for journalism, immediately upgrading his economy and his culture production, so that's definitely very nice. And I mean, he has still the Magic Castle, so that will make it that maybe even though he has low population, he can play maybe a bit greedily, just delete some stuff to get some pairs with Shakespeare going, and it still will be a bit difficult for me to punish him because he has the Magic Castle, and he also takes the team spots here to have a happy face solution. There is also Pierre later on in the game, so for him that could also be nice. I didn't want to push here, there could potentially be some strength events, and also I didn't really like any of the events that I have in hand to put into the deck. There's no Ocean Liner service, so I can't go for that wonder. Instead I went for one free upgrade this turn, also making space in my hand with that. And then I also really wanted to have the justice system, because for now with Saladin I still have 6 civil actions, but if I don't go for the justice system, then lose Saladin, I will be back on 5 civil actions, and I think that would be very bad. I have a bunch of additional signs, so I think the justice system is just something that I really want to have. Now I have some civil actions left. There's a copy of Rifleman, and with both Askew and me not having any swordsman, that of course can potentially be an important technology. But I at the end thought it's not the right choice to take it here, because Askew, if he indeed at the end will miss out on the Ocean Liner service, which I was hoping he will do with at the moment, Amici Castle still blocking him from taking that wonder, and I am being nicely prepared to take it away. Then if he gets the Rifleman, I thought that with his low population he doesn't want to go for a military push, and I don't really have to be afraid of him getting Rifleman. Of course, it could be nice to defend himself, but then of course I have to ask myself the question, do I even want to go for an aggressive game plan with having no tactic, especially also no tactic where I need a Rifleman. Maybe I will take it for 2 and then I will just draw the mobile artillery, something like this. I didn't want to spend 2 civil actions on the Rifleman here, and I thought it is not unlikely that this game will stay relatively peaceful unless I maybe get some really nice ways to get to punish Askew with the military, but with him having the Magic Castle it will just be a bit tricky, and so I was willing to not take the Rifleman here. Instead I went for Anthony Gaudi, and Anthony Gaudi is just a very nice culture leader here. I think of course I now with going from him don't have the option to go for Bach, but if I only build 1 opera, then Anthony Gaudi is already giving me 4 culture production, so as much as Bach would give me for with 2 operas, so only when I have 3 operas with Bach would give me more, and Anthony Gaudi will even save me 1 more science when I will develop the operas. So I thought Anthony Gaudi is nice to have, just also because I know that I can take him now, because I won't elect him now, because I thought with me potentially just wanting to take and finish the Ocean Liner service, the civil action from Saladin could still be more important. But it could just be nice to know that whenever I want, I can now increase my culture production, because it definitely can also play a part which player maybe manages to get a culture production going earlier. And so if Bach is very late, it could be quite awkward. And of course I could have maybe let Gaudi stay on the card row and take him at the next turn, but then the question is, what else do I want to do? And there's also Breakthrough available for 1 civil action, which I think is a very efficient card that I also maybe don't want Askew to have, unless he maybe has some issues, although he maybe has some issues to take it with his having a bit of hand space issues, but still he maybe could find a way to take it, and it could be an efficient card for him. It could also be a very nice card for me, especially if I maybe want to go for an H3 government form at some point, which could be important, and if this game should end up being a culture race. And if I take the Breakthrough, then Anthony Gaudi would be discarded, and then I just don't know when I will get Bach, and so I rather wanted to have Gaudi now in hand already for certain, instead of just having to go for Bach, and then also maybe Bach and the Ocean Liner service will be available at the same time, and maybe I have some stuff to do later on, and now I can just spend my civil actions now to have already the leader in hand and have more free civil actions to do some other stuff at the following turns. I keep one event, this tactic still in the colonization card. I do draw some tactics now, the Hussars tactic and the Conquistadors. The Riflemen will be gone now, but the Hussars of course could be very interesting. The first copy of Cavalryman will be gone, but there will be another copy, and I also still have the Knights in hand, so I was happy that I have now maybe a tactic that I can go for without too much effort. And as you can also see, there is actually now the Ocean Liner service coming down the road, but as you can also sadly see, there is also a border conflict revealed. So as you seeded the strength event into the deck, and he knew that he has Michi Castle near Shishka, and now without too much effort, sadly he will gain 3 additional resources, and I will lose something at my turn. SQ takes the architecture, develops it, builds 1 additional journalism, going up to 7 science production, and it will also allow him to just have enough science to go for the Conmon at the next turn if I don't take that card away. So he prepares himself nicely for that. Having the architecture and a culture race I think is very important. And he doesn't finish the Michi Castle yet, but he couldn't have finished it and taken the Ocean Liner service, and so he can maybe also just delay it and finish it at the next turn, because now he has this architecture going, has the additional journalism, and still has the possibility to go for the Conmon at the next turn. But as we can see, he also isn't too much concerned about any military stuff. He just lets both of the cannons be discarded. He passes on the Rifleman, so I think at this point we both maybe kind of expected this game to be a relatively peaceful one. And in this turn, of course, I want to go for the Ocean Liner service. I can finish it very efficiently. I want to take it away from SQ so that he is stuck maybe on his current amount of population for hopefully quite a while. And so I will take it. I also want to finish it to get the population going as quickly as possible. And now I have 2 civil actions left. I thought about developing the selective breeding and maybe going for 1 cheap upgrade with the efficient upgrade, because I made a decision to lose a farm to the border conflict, as I thought that if I will go for 1 cheap upgrade to selective breeding, then it's maybe fine to just be on 1 selective breeding farm, and then it's maybe also not too bad to have lost this farm to the border conflict, but I have to do it soon because the next turn I will have already famine issues, so I thought maybe I just want to do this now. Or I also thought about going for Knights now. If I don't get a chance to get a cavalryman at the next turn, maybe I have to develop Knights anyway to not leave myself completely vulnerable and at least be able to go fast house with the Knights. And also I can maybe still use the patriotism before I lose it to the end of the age, maybe build 1 knight without missing out on any draws. And if I build 1 knight and fulfill the medieval army tactic, it also means that I get stronger than SQ. He seeded a border conflict into the deck. I think 1 more event was seeded by him, 1 event by me, the new deposits. There could be another strength event, and then it could be nice maybe to get stronger now. Of course it would have been better to get stronger before the border conflict was revealed. But there could still be another strength event coming, and I maybe want to go for Knights anyway, because even if the cavalrymen are available for me at the next turn, I might have to take those for a bit expensive, to invest some civil actions into taking them to make sure that I have them. Then I maybe rather want to go for Knights that I have already in hand anyway, just to have a way to get a bit stronger, expecting that this game might be relatively peaceful. And at the end I made a decision that I indeed want to rather go for the Knights first, play the patriotism, build 1, and with that be stronger, have the Knights develop, don't miss out on any draws, and get this Knight for very cheap. And as you can also see, I still didn't elect Anthony Gaudi. Again, I definitely considered it, because he would just give me 3 additional culture reduction immediately. But again, I thought additional civil action from Saladin could be quite nice, because of the next turn I kinda have to go for the selective breeding, which cost me 2 civil actions. If this copy of Opera is available, then I also kinda would like to set up 1 Opera at the next turn. And there are also 2 science yellow cards coming down the row, which could be very nice to have. So I, at the end, thought a civil action from Saladin might still be worth more than the 3 additional culture reduction that it would gain, but this time it was a bit closer. The turn before, with me still planning to take and finish the Ocean Liner service, it was a bit clearer for me that I still want to have the civil action. Now I definitely considered it more to elect Anthony Gaudi already, but I still thought there is there will be a lot of important stuff to do for me the next turn. I could of course also consider taking the Conmon away, but there is a Republic, and even though SQ would drop down to 2, military actions. First of all, there's still a chance that he gets the strategy also the next turn, and I also don't really have a plan to punish him for being in 2 military actions, so at least for now. And taking both government forms away, it doesn't really work when I want to go for the ocean liner service. And I think even if I take and finish the ocean liner service, I also can't take for the conman because I had hand space issues, so yeah, I just will let SQ have the conman. But it's relatively late in H2, there might also be H3 government forms soon, so I don't think I have to deny it here. And as you can see, I just will pass on the cannons, but I have the Hussars tactic, which I was happy about, which maybe can help me to, in case SQ will go for a bit of strength to defend myself. Now it is SQ's turn. He doesn't see it. Maybe that could mean that there's a strength event coming. He first of all elects Shakespeare with that he has a free hand space, and he is actually willing to go for the Republic instead of the Conman, but that has probably something to do with the strategy being immediately available for him. Now he has even more civil actions than if he would have gone for Conman, and he has the strategy, so he can get some additional strength in the necessary military actions from there. Also he finishes the Meiji Castle and takes the Ridgeland. He doesn't put any effort into getting stronger, which maybe means that his second event isn't a strength event, and he takes the Ridgeland, which maybe either could be needed to build a third HA farm, because he might have some famine issues soon, or of course for him, he is probably hoping to get a copy of mechanized agriculture soon, and then the Ridgeland of course also could be nice to have. I was happy to see that he at least doesn't go for the opera, and because that means that I can start my culture production at the next turn, which might be important. Also with me being stronger now, there potentially maybe being another strength event, I was willing to seed, and I seeded the civil unrest into the deck with just building some operas. I was hoping that I will have enough happy faces to not get hit by that. And the event revealed is the scientific breakthrough, so that was the second event. That of course gives SQ some additional value, and I was not too happy to see it, because before that was revealed, SQ didn't have the option to go for strategy and the opera, and I thought maybe that could be a bit awkward for him having to decide between those two options, but now he can just develop the strategy, start getting more draws in, being stronger, while also being able to go for the opera immediately to also start the culture production immediately, so I think it's a helpful event for him, but he also of course prepared nicely for that event, also with getting those journalisms going very quickly. And this turn I will use the ocean liner service to increase my population. I will take the opera, I will elect Antony Gaudi. Now it's the last turn in H3. I definitely want to fix my famine, I definitely want to build one opera, and then I also want to just take those two strong H2 yellow cards, so I think a very clean turn, and I think at the end it was indeed worth it to keep Saladin for one more turn, because I probably would have just missed out on one of those yellow cards, and I think having those two science yellow cards really could help me to get into an H3 government form, and I think getting the early democracy could really put me, improve my position a lot and help me a lot, and so I think being able to take both of those cards now is very nice. Also I go up to 12 culture production, meaning after my production I will only be 3 culture behind SQ, and so I was thinking that I have a decent position here, but of course SQ has Shakespeare, he hasn't any pair yet, still has already some culture production thanks to his religions and also his wonders, so if he starts building some pairs, then he definitely will get a lot of culture production, but I was hoping that his low population will be a bit annoying for him, especially now when he will lose those 2 yellow tokens, and he also has some famine issues. I was hoping that having a nice population income will give me an advantage in H3, and maybe allows me to just more smoothly build those culture production, maybe be nicer prepared for impacts at the end, maybe in case SQ isn't careful, maybe I get something like tanks for the Hussars in military theory, I could even potentially punish SQ, but with the Meiji Castle that's of course always a bit tricky. Now I draw some additional cards, the autonomous territory, also the international negotiations and the colonization card. H3 will start now, and SQ will go for the opera, wants to build one immediately, can also develop the strategy thanks to the scientific breakthrough being revealed, and then he has 3 civil actions left, will take the wave, and also the cavalryman, he doesn't want to be without any military check. I think that would be quite dangerous, and like this at least he can always threaten to just build a cavalryman, sacrifice it with the Meiji Castle, and even if he has no tactic, that already will give him a bit of strength potential. Also, there is a Manhattan project coming down the road, and of course that could also be a very interesting wonder for SQ, just being able to get some strength without requiring any population. My turn, I am weaker, But I think I also kind of wanted to see this new deposits revealed. I was not too happy about a crime wave being put into the deck, but at the end I thought at least they get, if I don't seed, I miss out on 2 culture from seeding. If I lose it, I miss out on 3 cultures, so it would not be too bad to lose it at the end. And the new deposits are revealed, and I think this turn I kind of have to take either the Manhattan Project or the tanks, because if I don't take any of those cards, I definitely am a bit in a risk of just myself maybe getting hit by a wall. If then SQ goes for Manhattan Project, he has quite a bit of an amount of strength with me, or without me having the tanks, and with SQ also having, of course, the possibility to use Dimichi Castle in an offensive way. There is definitely a bit of threat, and so I thought I kinda need to take either the Manhattan Project or the tanks. I didn't really like to take the Manhattan Project because ideally I would rather like to go for a wonder like Internet to score a lot of points, and then the Manhattan Project could block myself from taking such a wonder. And with having the Asars, I thought the tanks are very nice to have, especially because I have a nice amount of population. Then I also definitely wanted to build one more opera to get even more culture production going, and I could potentially just build another opera. But the question is, do I want to do it? And at the end, I made a decision to actually go for the tanks and already build one. Because I actually have to be a little bit careful here. Because SQ potentially, if he has already a wall, something like this, could just take and finish the Manhattan Project, develop the Cavalryman with the Wave of Nationalism if he plays that before. I mean, I guess if I don't build this tank, then I am weaker. So, I mean, maybe it's not that dangerous, but if I don't build this tank now, then there is some potential that I could be a little bit in trouble. But also a big reason was that I was a bit afraid that SQ maybe has just put another strength event on top, maybe with knowing that he has the Dimichi Castle and stuff, so I also was a little bit afraid of that, and at the end just thought that I maybe want to build this one tank, allowing me to build 2 more, either tanks or knights, or I will take those reserves, then I can build a tank and a knight and reveal the Hussars tactics, so that hopefully will be enough to defend myself against a potential war. Otherwise that could be a bit tricky, because if I don't build any unit now, I don't have enough military actions to build 3 units and reveal the tactic at the next turn. I could of course also just build a knight, but at the end I made a decision to commit to the tanks, get stronger now also for a potential strength event, and then I maybe at least save the military action in case I want to go for an upgrade later on anyway. But it's also big investment. I could have also gone for another opera, so at this point I was not certain if I really want to go for this, but at the end I thought prepares me for a strength event, it makes me a bit safer potentially from the military, and so I went for this one tank. Also, there is in the next deck actually the crime wave coming, and maybe potentially on the strength room from SQ, so it could also have some value for that. And at the end I just made the decision to take those 2 reserves. First I thought maybe I also want to take the Urban Growth, it's just a more efficient card, and I definitely want to build an opera as soon as possible, probably already at the next turn. But the reserves could just more flexible, and also SQ has definitely some issues now with his food, and so I wanted to take as many cards away from him as possible that could allow him to maybe get a bit of additional food going. Now he can take this 1 copy of reserves, but it alone doesn't allow him to get an additional population going. Can maybe help him a bit against the famine, but yeah, I just thought maybe denying the reserves at the end is more important than having the urban growth, and at least I can use those 2 cards for the military in case that should be needed at some point. So at the end I just took both copies of reserves. I will draw 2 cards now. The Impact of Architecture maybe could be interesting, but for now SQ also definitely has the potential to build up a strong architecture. He seeds, so there's no strength event on top, and it's actually the wealthy territory. I was not too happy to see that there's a colony on top, because if SQ just sends both warriors away, then actually he doesn't have any famine issues any longer, because he will be in the other area of the yellow bank, and then won't lose any food any longer. So I thought it maybe could be an easy fix, and because of that I was willing to bid quite a lot actually. I was willing to bid a tank and a warrior and a card, so 1 army with the tank going up to 10. I was hoping that maybe I will be able to win it. At least I don't need to rebuild a warrior, I can just rebuilding maybe the tank, so I still maybe get a little bit of resource gain, and I have maybe the population to support this colony bit, but at the end SQ is able to win it. And sadly, he has quite a bunch of colonization cards, so he can now win this colony with sending the 2 warriors away, getting a lot of additional resource. Of course, he is in low population, so losing those 2 warriors is a bit bad, but now he has just fixed his famine issues just with sending those warriors away. He has all of those additional resources, so I thought, that it's maybe nice for him to win this colony, and I wasn't too happy to see that he now doesn't have to do anything about fixing his famine issues. He has now a lot of resource that of course makes it also a lot easier for him to maybe invest into the Manhattan Project after getting new deposits and the wealthy territory with the last 2 events. He develops the navigation. Maybe there are some more colonies coming, but maybe it's also just to get a bit more strength, as he has just sent a lot of colonization cards away. He has no unit at the moment that he can sacrifice for the Magic Castle, meaning it looks like maybe he doesn't have an additional defense card now, but now with the additional strength from the navigation he can still defend himself, and then he is willing to destroy religion, another religion, to just build an opera and a journalism very cheaply with Shakespeare and the architecture, getting up to 19 culture production, and with having the Manhattan Project he can just always threaten quite a lot of strength, especially also with having the wave of nationalism and being able to, in addition to the Manhattan Project, always very cheaply build 1 unit that he can sacrifice with the Magic Castle. So I thought at this point, even though there is the military theory coming down the road, which I could potentially go for, I thought it will be very, very difficult to punish SQ in a war, and I rather just have to try to win in a peaceful way. Now it's my turn. I made the decision to seed the international negotiations. I just really wanted to seed because there's the chance to see the crime wave revealed now, and maybe SQ will finish the Manhattan Project soon, and then it could be that I will lose it later on. So even though I don't know yet if the international negotiations will be good or bad for me, I was willing to put it into the deck. I was at this point still a bit afraid from the potential that SQ can just build a very big impact of architecture, so I passed on that one for now. And sadly, there's no crime wave revealed, instead a civil unrest. That's just a neutral event. I will use the ocean liner service to increase my population, and then I will build 1 more opera this turn. There is potentially still a little bit of a risk that SQ might go for a war with Manhattan Project and building 1 cavalryman, so I have to be a little bit careful, but I also thought if I'm too careful, then I might just fall behind in culture too much, and at least SQ could maybe after my turn even win the war by a little bit, but it would still be an investment for him. He has to destroy something, and at the end I thought with him having Shakespeare and just being able to build 1 more opera very cheaply, maybe going for multimedia to increase his culture production, I thought those options are maybe just better for him, and if I play too careful now, then I might just fall completely behind in a peaceful culture race. So I of course have to be a bit careful to not leave myself too vulnerable, but it's also not unlikely that maybe SQ doesn't even have a war for now, and so I also thought I don't have to make completely certain that I can defend myself. I only maybe have to make sure that I can at least threaten a little bit of strength, so that it's at the end not worth it to go for SQ to go for potential war. So I was willing to invest the resource into the opera. I really want to have the endowment, the revolutionary idea, and also Pierre, the revolutionary idea, could just really be really helpful if I go for an H3 government form. The endowment will just be 6 additional culture, and Pierre, I also thought I will maybe keep Anthony Gaudi for now, and then Pierre will give me some additional points with the Olympic Games, and SQ could just use him also for that. So of course Marlene Dietrich might also be a nice leader for SQ, but I think the Olympic Games from PR maybe just make him the better leader, and who knows, maybe I will get even pro sports, can develop for cheap with Anthony Gaudi, and if I then also get something like the internet, and maybe PR could even also produce me some points with going for some arenas. Now I have 2 civil actions left. The military theory I thought could be interesting to have, also for defensive purposes, but maybe in case SQ completely overextends his resources, also for potential war still, but at this point I was really thinking that I can't really go for an offensive military push, and so at the end I just wanted to have all of those cards. I wanted to build the opera, and then I can't take the military theory, and I was willing to accept that. And instead I played this copy of Revolutionary Idea and at least took the satellites. Those 3 additional strength are also allowing me to threaten a bit more strength in case SQ thinks about a war. And like this I can go for satellites, build one tank, one knight, reveal the hussars tactic, which in case SQ does as much as he can for the strength will probably not be enough to defend myself. But it's getting really close, and then I thought SQ might consider or might come to the conclusion that it's maybe not worth it for him to go for this war, even though he can maybe win it by a very small margin. I will draw 2 wars, maybe indeed SQ doesn't have a war. I have at least knowledge about 2 of them now, and I also draw a colonization card. SQ will finish the Manhattan project, so he has some additional strength. Sadly, that will likely mean that I will lose to the crime wave now, and then he is willing to destroy another urban building to go for another pair with Shakespeare, going up to 24 culture reduction, taking the patriotism, and also very importantly taking the democracy away. That not only will allow him to go for even more culture reduction with the democracy, but also allow him to build more urban building, and it would do the same for me. So I think if I get a democracy here, that could give me a very big boost and be very helpful for me. So I think it's very important that SQ denies it. He is willing to skip air forces, military theory, and all the stuff, also multimedia, because I think it's just the most important for him to get a democracy here. And he also was willing to take the patriotism, interestingly. Maybe is at least a little bit afraid of that I can do something maybe with the military theory and air forces and stuff. But maybe also wants to have it for potential offensive purposes. Who knows, having one more military action could potentially allow him to threaten even more strength. My turn, I will use the ocean liner service, and I missed out on the democracy, but after making space my hand, at least I can go for the communism. I definitely would have preferred the democracy, but at least I can keep more cards in hand now and get a little bit of additional resource production. And I just also wanted to have the possibility to build more urban buildings to keep up with the culture race. Sadly, I definitely am falling a bit behind here, so no, I was afraid that maybe SQ is just running a little bit away here and I can't punish him that easily. And then I have 3 civil actions left, and at the end I made the decision to take the urban growth and the military theory. And as you can see, I actually make the decision to not build an opera, because I again was a bit afraid that SQ can maybe go for a bit of military pressure, especially now that he has the patriotism. He can just build potentially 2 air forces, sacrifice one, going up to 35 strength, and if I commit the resources into the opera, then I am again a bit vulnerable. And now I have the military theory that at least might be nice for some impacts. I have the urban growth, so I can maybe build the opera for cheaper in case I still get the internet. And I was thinking that my way to come back into this game is maybe to get a relatively strong internet going, while SQ maybe then doesn't get a nice wonder. Sadly, the mechanized agriculture is available now. I mean, it's relatively late, so it's about time for SQ to get it, but he can now go for it at the next turn, get some food production. So if I get the internet, he can maybe still prepare himself also for the red cross somewhat nicely. But yeah, I was thinking at this point that my best out here is maybe to just be lucky and get the internet, otherwise it might get very difficult for me to still win this game. And at least having the military theory, if SQ for some reason leaves himself very vulnerable, I can maybe still go for a war, but it just will be, it's unlikely that it will happen, because SQ can just threaten too much strength with being able to sacrifice 1 unit for +8 strength if he gets an H3 unit going. I then draw an impact, the impact of variety. That's at least an impact that could be somewhat decent, especially if I get the satellites and the military theory going. It's also somewhat fine for SQ with having all of those blue tags, so it's not a great impact, but at least an impact that I can safely push into the deck. As you see, the crime wave is revealed now. Sadly, I will lose 3 culture now, and then SQ will go for the mechanized agriculture. There's no internet for him, otherwise he might have maybe just taken the internet, but now I think it is the right decision by him to go for this mechanized agriculture. Otherwise he would have maybe some famine issues soon, but more importantly, maybe he just prepares himself with that to also go for a red cross potentially in case he misses out on the internet. And then he takes the rockets, the Marlene Dietrich, and interestingly he is revealing the mechanized army tactic, and that made me really afraid, because with him having Marlene, rockets, cavalryman, and the patriotism, he could potentially just declare war the next turn, build 1 cavalryman, 1 rocket, elect Marlene, and with that and the patriotism being able to fulfill 1 tactic and then also sacrifice with the Michi Castle, and that could be really difficult for me to defend against.
So I was quite afraid of that, and yeah, I thought that might make my position quite difficult, and I have to see the next turn how I want to deal with this. First of all, I see the impact of variety in the deck. I just need to start seeding some impacts. I have to hope that I maybe still draw some nice ones and that I get as many culture out of seeding and those impacts as possible. The event revealed is the National Pride, so sadly even more culture for SQ. With that I was definitely losing more and more the hope that I maybe can still come back into this game. SQ definitely has now quite a big lead. Even if I increase my culture reduction this turn, he is still about almost a 30 culture lead. So yeah, it's getting quite difficult to come back into this game, and especially also with SQ threatening now this much strength with having the Patriotism, Madeleine Dietrich, and this tactic. And at the end, I just came to the conclusion, if I want to try to be safe from a war, then I probably have just lost at the end, because then I can't catch up in a peaceful way. So my way to win this game is just to hope that SQ doesn't have a war, and then the internet is available for me this turn, so I can take the internet away from SQ, and I just have to hope that there is no war. That is my way out of this game, I think, and so I just have to hope that SQ doesn't have a war. I don't think I can defend myself here and then still have a chance to win this game. So I take the internet, I take the bro sport. Sadly, I won't develop them this turn with the bonus from Anthony Godi, because I have some other stuff that I want to do. I still wanted to have the bro spots because with Pierre, it is just a very nice card to have for the internet, also of course to get some culture reduction, going also for some impacts, maybe making the impact of architecture viable impact to go for. The impact of variety will get a little bit better, so I thought it's a card that I want to have. And then with my last civil action, I will play actually the reserves for 3 food, because with me having taken the internet, SQ very likely will go for the red cross, and now that I have those 3 additional food, I just can make certain that I will build 1 additional step to also get some culture out of it. And now, I maybe could have also ended the age potentially, but then I can't take the internet, and then it's just, no, why should I end the age then? Just giving SQ, I mean, he can't finish the internet, but I'm still a lot of culture behind then, and I need a big wonder to maybe catch up a bit of the culture gap. This turn I also have to reveal the Assassin tactic, so that I can potentially use it. I mean, if there's a war or something, it will be very dangerous anyway, but it's nice to have it regardless. I draw 2 more impacts, the impact of colonies and the impact of industry. The impact of industry is at least a seedable one. Impact of colonies is +3 for SQ, so sadly not really great impacts, which definitely didn't really increase my hopes that I had for this game. And SQ doesn't go for a war. Likely that means that he doesn't have a war available, because I think if he has one, it's probably worth it for him to go for one. But he also has definitely some nice stuff to do when he plays it peacefully. Goes for another cheap opera with Shakespeare, and with the democracy he will now be at 30 culture reduction. Has the chance to at least also get some culture out of a wonder with going for the red cross. Maybe I should have considered taking the reserves instead of the bro spots. That definitely could have been an interesting option to make the red cross less big, but at the end I rather wanted to have the bro spots to potentially just get some nice culture out of them. And as you can see, there's also 1 more copy of reserves in the deck, so it could be that the last copy of reserves could just be available for SQ. Then of course he has to take it for more expensive, which definitely could make a difference, but there was definitely a decent chance that he still has the chance to take it. Maybe it could even fall down to 2 civil actions, so I rather wanted to have the pro spots for myself at the end. And SQ just gets another 30 culture reduction, it's now at 180, and I was not too, didn't have too much hope at this point. And at the beginning of this turn I had to think about, do I want to push, because the thing is, there is still 1H2 event, and it is the international negotiations that I've seeded in earlier. And if I seed now and then SQ seeds, that could be really problematic, because the turn that I was thinking about for this turn would leave me with just enough resources on. I would have, even if SQ takes the resource away, I could still finish the internet, but I wouldn't be able to fix my famine at the last turn, which would result in 4 culture that I lose, and my impacts aren't the best ones anyway, so I could also think about not pushing. But with the turn I will actually get stronger, and with that of course I can safely push, but it was something very important to give I really had to figure out my turn first here, because if I just see it and then I figure out that the best turn that I can do I will stay weaker, but I maybe need every resource for the internet, and it could just be very bad. But the turn that I will do will actually result in me being stronger, because this turn I first of all definitely said I will see the impact of industry. The impact of wonders is revealed, which is a bit better for SQ, but at least not a really big impact. And in this turn, of course, I want to go for Pierre to get the Olympic Games at the next turn, and then the Pro Sports are just very nice with the internet, so I will just build 3 of them, getting stronger, going up to 20 culture reduction, and also definitely making the internet quite solid. And with my last 3 civil actions, I then first of all took the multimedia. That one I don't need for myself, it's just a hate draft, because SQ could just easily go for some upgrades without maybe needing to destroy anything. And so I thought it could maybe be a nice thing for him to do. Maybe he can just be fine without it, maybe build another journalism, destroy something, finish the Red Cross. But I thought that could maybe be a very nice option for him to have. So I wanted to take that away, and then I also really wanted to have some additional resources, because I could just finish the internet at the next turn. I don't build a step of the Red Cross this turn, because I can just do it still at the next turn. SQ doesn't have a way to finish the Red Cross at the next turn. So I can also build a step at my following turn, and yeah, so I take the engineering genius, and with that I can finish the internet while still having 4 resources remaining, and those 4 resources will just give me enough resources to build 1 printing press, which gives me +1 culture reduction and +2 for the internet for 2 resources, and I can build 1 more farm, so that after building the step of the Red Cross I don't have any famine. And so I think those 4 resources are very important for me to have. The problem is that I might not have enough civil actions to do everything that I want to do at my next turn. I can finish the internet, build a printing press and a farm, and build a step and play the endowment at the next turn, but then I don't have enough civil actions left to play revolutionary idea and develop the satellites, which would give me +2 points for impact of variety and improvement potential impact of progress, which maybe could have been seeded by SQ. But I was hoping that maybe there's the chance that SQ pushes, and then the international negotiations are revealed, and then there is the chance that he will pay me science, because if he pays me food, he can build less stages of the Red Cross. If he pays me resources, I can maybe make the internet potentially even bigger and just have more options. And so maybe there's the chance he would give me science, and if he doesn't see, there is maybe the chance that he will stay weaker, and then I can maybe push and take the science, and then I don't need to play the revolutionary idea to develop the satellites, and then I actually could do all of the stuff that I want to do. So there's the chance that I won't be able to go for the satellites, but I still was willing to play the turn like I did it. Going off for all of those pro sports, the impact of architecture will definitely also get solid. Another reason why I wanted to deny the multimedia. But I didn't want to see it this turn, because it could potentially be revealed before my next turn, and as I said, I plan on building 1 additional printing press, while I don't plan building an additional mine, so the impact of industry was just a better impact to push first. SQ will go for Marlene Dietrich this turn, will develop the rockets, place the reserves for food, destroys an HA farm, destroys an H1 mine that at least will cost him some points for the impact of industry, builds an additional library, builds 1 rocket interestingly, and then he can build 4 steps of the Red Cross. So it's interesting that he builds this rocket, but I think it's definitely very reasonable. It could of course mean that he has the impact of strength seeded, but I don't think so, because I could still very easily get stronger with just going for satellites or military theory. So I don't think that he has seeded it himself, but he makes it more difficult for me to go for the impact of strength myself. Maybe he has seen that I have to miss out on some stuff if I want to develop those blue techs, and maybe he is also afraid of a strength event being on top with me just having gotten stronger. Maybe he was suspicious, and there is indeed one on top, and maybe also just for some impacts like harmony, so that this impact isn't completely bad for him. It could be important to maybe have this rocket also for impact of competition, just making some very bad impacts a little bit less bad, so that with him having a lead at the moment, that he can maybe, even if those impacts are coming, still have a shot at winning. He gets again a 30 culture production, putting him at 245, so quite a lot. I at this turn definitely want to see it. I can get the Olympic Games, the international negotiations are revealed, but it's not too bad for me that I lose them. I mean, it would be nice to win them, definitely, but losing them is not too bad, because I can just lose some science and it doesn't really impact my turn that much. I will still just first of all play the endowment for 6 culture, build 1 printing press. I could miss out on building the printing press and instead make sure that I can get one of those blue techs going, but the printing press will give me +1 production, +3 for the internet, +1 for the impact of architecture, so it would give me +4 culture, and satellites only +2 or them. For the impact of variety, and then there would need to be an impact of progress to make that really worth it, or an impact of technology. So there is definitely the chance that there are some impacts in there, but I rather wanted to go for the safe culture here. So I built a printing press. I will finish the internet for 37 points, so definitely a very solid amount of points to get out of the internet, and then with my last civil actions I will build 1 step of the Red Cross. SQ will also score 1 culture with that, because it is finished now, but there is only 1 colony in play, so it's still giving me +5 culture against him. Then I will build 1 farm, and with my last civil action I will play the revolutionary idea, and as you can see, sadly I'm missing 1 civil action now to develop the satellites for +2 points for variety. But with getting this internet, the endowment, the Olympic Games from PR, I definitely have catched up a little bit in culture, and I'm now only 15 culture behind, so that's definitely not over. Sadly, the impacts that I've seeded in there are not really that big for me, but I will still gain a little bit of additional points, and if SQ maybe has committed to an impact which isn't that great for him now, maybe there's a chance that I can still win this game. And the first impact is the impact of industry. Thanks to SQ destroying his mine, it at least gives me +2 against him. Then there's the impact of variety, which gives me +4 against him, so I am now only 9 culture behind him. But sadly there is the impact of culture, and that one is just too big, so even though I have 1 more impact from me, the impact of architecture, that is not giving me enough points to catch up to SQ, and he will finish this game at a first position with a 16 culture lead. So I was happy to at least be able to catch up some nice points with Pierre and the internet. Also thanks to probably SQ don't having war available. But at the end it is not enough. I think I could have had maybe a shot, but I would need some more luck. I mean, I maybe had already some luck with SQ not being able to go for war, but with even some more luck, for example, getting the impacts that would really punish SQ, maybe impact of competition and another strong impact, maybe could have been something possible, but then I really would have to be very lucky with my impact draws, so without those potentially strong impacts at the end, SQ is able to win, and no, at the end manages to play a nice peaceful game, even though for the most parts of the game he didn't have any additional food production, and I think that definitely played a part that he had Moses and all of those additional population, even taking the food from development of markets when he had already tons of population. Maybe it didn't do a lot for him short term, unless maybe from using his civil actions more efficiently, but it made sure that he had a lot of population, and he was, thanks to that, maybe it was possible for him to deny Shakespeare anti-journalism, even though it meant missing out on selective breeding and likely on the ocean liner service. And then he maybe just had the more efficient, better culture leader going, had the Magic Castle to defend himself, also the Manhattan Project, and at some point, at the end, he was even the more threatening. Definitely a lot more threatening than me. I was definitely afraid, and at the end I couldn't have defended against the war if maybe SQ would have gone for one, and probably just didn't have one. And so I think at the end it's just a deserved win for him, very well played by him. And at least I made it a bit closer at the end with being able to go for Pierre and this very nice internet. And so that was the last game of this group stage, and now we will take a look at the final standings. And even with winning this game, SQ still isn't allowed to lose his last game against HealingAura. So now you will be able to see if SQ manages to win also the other game against HealingAura, and with that move on to the next stage, or if HealingAura makes an incredible comeback and wins his last 3 big games, and with that is able to move on to the next stage. So we will take a look at those final standings now. And as you can see here, SQ managed to win the last game against HealingAura quite convincingly with a 60 culture lead, and with that he has won his last 2 games, and even though the games before in the stage didn't really went too nicely for him, there definitely were some unfortunate endings, especially maybe if you remember this 4-player game where I think it was looking really good for him, but with my big impact of harmony and population and Pierre, I was able to make a comeback. And also this game where he lost only very closely behind me. So I think there were some unfortunate endings, but now with his last 2 games he managed to win both of them, and with that will be able to continue in the next stage. Didn't get eliminated, and HealingAura at the end will be eliminated, but at least he made also a nice comeback, did show why he made it so far in this tournament, was able to win 2 3-player games, and is now at the end at 10 points. I'm at the end, it was already clear before this game has finished. I'm now at the first position and with 29 points, but with not being able to win this last game against SQ and also the 3-player game, I am now below 30 points, and with that I won't be in the top seeding basket, meaning that I could potentially get paired with a really strong player. I mean, that might happen anyway, because at the next stage in the upper bracket there will only be 16 players left who all managed to win all of their groups so far. So of course all of them will be very strong, but of course there are maybe some especially strong ones, and those I could potentially now be paired against with not being in the top seeding basket. So that's not ideal for me, but overall of course I'm still very happy how the stage went for me. I think I made some nice comebacks. And with that, at the end, I managed to win the stage with 29 points with a bit of a lead. So overall, of course, I'm very happy how things went for me, and it will be very interesting to then see the next stage, because as said, there will only be 16 players left in the upper bracket, only 4 upper bracket groups, and all of them will be filled with a lot of very strong players. So I hope you're looking forward to the next stage, and maybe it takes a little bit of a while until the first games will be finished, but yeah, that will be very interesting, and I hope you're looking forward to it. Yeah, and then thanks for watching the video. I hope it was an interesting game, an interesting stage for you. Thanks for watching, and then see you in the next video.